So let's go back to the Fuse, because what I was getting at is that I didn't want to start off the show and be like, we got an Escovedo on the show, okay? Pete Escovedo's uncle, cousin, nephew, right?
Right, nephew.
Excuse me. Pete Escovedo's your uncle, Sheila E., blah, 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 because when the Fuse is not your straight ahead Latin jazz band, and your passion is in that fusion jazz. So let's take a step back, because when we were on the phone talking, you were expressing how, by you growing up in this background of Latin jazz and love of music, but as you got older and wanted to go off on your own, you didn't necessarily want to do the traditional thing. You wanted to go into that more fusion jazz. So talk a little bit about why you wanted to do the fusion stuff, and then let's get into a little bit about what that's like, the blessing and the curse to be an Escovedo.
Okay, so, fortunately enough, having been, raised in a family, of course, now and still living legends, some have passed, unfortunately, and some are blessed as we are still with us and going strong, and the family is growing as we do with more musicians and more people in this business. We're definitely an entertainment family, and I'm proud to be able to say that we are, the Escovedo family, and the name it continues to carry on with generations coming up that are like in the business doing stuff, whether it be in fashion.
Oh, wow.
My cousin Juan has a daughter that's in the fashion industry doing very well in New York. Brittany does great. She's having a blast. And I was like, so we have all these other people. My cousin Peter Michael, he's got his grandkids, they have their own television show already. I mean, There's all these different things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so we have dancers, we have photographers, we have rappers, we have everything across the board. So I think that's really cool, because when the family name was first coming up, it was all about the Latin jazz, percussionists, Latin musicians, and they thought, well, that was it.
Timbales.
And then there was the other side of the family from my grandfather's other marriage. There's 3 other brothers, Javier, Mario, and Alejandro Escovedo. And Alejandro is a very big name in his own right. And he does a lot of different stuff. And the other brothers, all three of them together, very influential up here in San Francisco in the big punk movement back when. So, really the family name, and in terms of it's an entertainment family. It's in the business.
Yeah.
To carry
with the Jacksons and the Braxtons.
Right, exactly, right,
Yeah,
right. So it's
yeah.
definitely one of the, but for us, it's because it's that name here in the East Bay.
Yes.
And we have other names like that from here in the East Bay, but for me, this is just because it's what I'm related to. So, when I started to really expand and get into listening to more of the other stuff that was more left rather than the mainstream Latin jazz stuff.
Weather Report,
Chick Bob Corea. James, Chick Corea, right? I mean, really, Stanley Clarke, right? George Duke. There's all
Sonny
the
Ra, probably.
Yeah, there's a lot of other different stuff. So it's like literally me layering all these different genres of music onto my plate and trying to find some definitive way to just peel off the rest and just leave in there what I liked about each different group, each different genre, and making mental note over all those years, like as I was learning and playing, feeling that my gravitational pull towards this certain genre or style that, of course, at that early point was like the main push of what would soon to be called acid jazz.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With Tony Williams, and then Return to Forever, and really just all these other different players, and listening, and then of course spending more time listening to drummers in those elements. Then I really started to get knee deep into it, of course. And as a rock drummer starting out from a Latin family, I had my rock drummers that I liked, but there was a time was like even just knowing like what Steve Smith from Journey. My exposure to Steve Smith was like in Journey,
right?
And seeing him play out live, and having that be a Bay Area group from here,
right? And
learning everything about them. And then my stepfather drops this album into my lap, says, "Here, check this out. You might like this." And it was Jean-Luc Ponty. And I'm like, I don't know who this is. An electric violinist player, right?
Wow.
And it's Imaginary Voyage,
okay.
first album I got turned on to by him. And who's the drummer? It's Steve Smith.
Yeah.
And the stuff that he did on that album, I'm like, wait. And I looked at the name like, there's got to be another Steve Smith, right? No, it's the same Steve Smith. You have to be able to balance that stuff, and it's part of being, in the business. You got to get to a certain point to where you're accomplished at a certain level, to where you have the freedom to go ahead and say, well, now I'm going to do this because this is what I want to do, just for the fun of just doing that. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be a thing that, well, I'm going to do that because I know that's going to make money, because I'm going to do this because it may not make money, but it's still a lot of fun to do, and people do enjoy it. And the other thing I'm doing over here actually does make me money, and that's cool. That's part of the business, being a musician. If you're going to be a professional, you're going to do stuff like that. You're going to make decisive, conscious decisions to do those things once you get to a certain point in your career. So for me, going through all this stuff, accumulating all this knowledge, working for my family over all the years, them being probably the sole reason why I know everything about the business that I do, because I always try to make sure I'm so closely connected to everything that they're doing.